How did you want me to document things? I mean, I know I had that, sheet you gave me. How did you
Okay.
Is it some example every time I read it?
Are we ready to begin?
He needs support.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure.
We're all good? You okay down there?
Well, Hannah.
Perfectly.
I offered to help, but she had her
Well,
system.
you'll get the idea, because you know patterns. So you
Before we begin, Paula couldn't be here today, but she wanted me to remind you guys that she had a book on patterns, and she checked it out of the library, and she's going to come and do read-alouds in the room, so if you wanted to connect literature to math.
Oh, very cool.
So just so you know, she has it and is willing to come in and read for something different.
Yeah.
Okay. Last we left off, we have to finish up with our concept sequence,
Right, we want to,
and then we're
Little
good
white
to
mechanical
go
mouse.
with our framing.
okay, want to review any of this stuff? We know where we are?
I think we know where we are.
Yeah, I think we know where we are. Okay.
Oh, there was one thing in our vocabulary. Do we have pattern unit?
Oh, pattern unit?
We have unit.
The word
okay.
unit.
Do you want to say pattern unit?
Max uses pattern unit, but I don't know if that.
The same thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Just so we have it. Okay. All right, so concept sequence?
Let's say counting by fives, tens, or it says.
What?
Go back and forth. Twos is not that one. The other one is like- Twos
Count,
is missing.
oh, twos, 5 to
Yeah,
10?
twos is missing.
Okay. Okay, that works? Okay.
Cool beans.
All righty, that's an easy one. All right,
So where do we want to start with teaching this?
Well, I thought when Sonia and I were looking up in the math workstations in the Debbie Diller, pages 1 through 6, it was saying literally how to introduce patterns.
Yeah.
And they were saying that to start with, in your environment, picking out patterns, like even in the classroom, then going to using maybe the students, even
Yeah.
like a gender pattern, then going to letters, and then words and books, and then numbers, dominoes, equations. And basically what they were saying was that it's kind of like we were saying kind of like an anchor chart, but on page 4 they were saying you basically want them to make a pattern, draw the same pattern, label the pattern, and then write what the pattern is. So that's what the goal of when you're introducing the patterns.
What type of patterns were they talking about?
Like I said,
repeating or growing?
A, B, A, B, A, B.
So repeating.
repeating patterns,
Not
yeah,
growing patterns,
repeating.
but.
So do we want to start with repeating patterns?
I think
I think so, because it's easier for them to grab
Well,
and
and they've also been
understand.
introduced to it since kindergarten,
Right.
so.
And that has to be solid before you can even move on to
The growing one.
good growing
Get the
ones.
concept down.
I thought that we were
I'm
going to
just gonna
start
type
with the counting first. I don't know why I thought.
The counting
The
patterns?
numbers, to the skip counting
Math
first.
next starts with skip counting. The
I thought that was
introduction, but
simpler. Twos, fives.
And then,
It depends on how you guys want to start.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with the skip counting? Have you been working on that? I guess the better
'Cause that's
question
what
is,
I was-
have you already been working on it and you can springboard off of that?
That I was thinking of seeing what they know. How far do they know to count by twos? By five. That's what
I remember
Yeah.
last year when we were doing skip counting, because it came, Beth and I had a big aha moment, is having the kids being able to rote say the numbers and actually connect those numbers with objects, because it freaked me out, because I was watching a kid skip count by twos, and he grabbed one thing and went 2, 4, one object at a time, and that just, rote being able to say it, but actually being able to apply it were two different things, and that freaked me out.
So that's why I was
last year.
thinking if we do patterns, because it's not that we want to connect the skip counting to patterns. So that's why I thought if we started with patterns, and then when we get to the point when we start introducing numbers and
Growing.
equations, then that's how we're introducing the skip counting.
And skip
like I said,
counting
if
is
you,
really growing by twos.
Right.
That's a generalization.
so it's
growing
not
by
just that
5 and
rote
10s.
memorization of
Right.
it.
And I
Beth-
think the big point is that quantity piece, which
Yeah.
many people forget.
Matches.
And I think that's like the aha, like they'll probably be able to figure it out, hopefully themselves, after seeing the patterns using different, things in the
Manipulators
classroom and
and- yeah.
objects. And then they'll hopefully be able to, then really see, well, yeah, numbers are the
Apply it.
patterns.
So Beth, I hear in your concept sequence, you're saying connect to real life first, on real, concrete patterns, searching and finding patterns even before we go into a review of repeating patterns.
Well, just to throw another option out here, Kathy Richardson started with like sounds. I think Math Investigation did that, where you clap, snap, and then they repeat it. So that's another option. And then she also used their bodies, like one student would be sitting, one student would put their hands up, sitting, hands up, and then they would identify the pattern that way.
And one of the.
Well, and that goes back to what we talked about last time with the whole total body movement, getting kids up, moving with patterns.
And one of the lesson plans of the ESS is about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Stand up, high five.
To help with the physical part, so I was just trying to I thought a great way would be to make connections to not only objects but things. So I used this when we were doing probability. We used a lot of the different characters and we made likely, unlikely, based on different images. So then you can create A/B patterns with them, have the kids stand up, and then try to identify it. So this would be an A/B pattern, you could use those. And then when we get to growing patterns, there's some images that I put in that you could just show, okay, what do there's a growing pattern, with the 3. And they get very engaged. I found, when we used it for probability, they got very excited and they wanted to do more. And this is, something that they know, so they'll hone in on the differences of them. So those images are in the resources folder.
That's what I like about the Debbie Diller book is,
Yeah.
like I said, pages 1 through 6, she's really just teaching about patterns. And she has the children stand up and she arranges them in a certain way. She doesn't tell them it's a pattern, but she asks, what do you notice? And the kids finally go, oh, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. And they, oh, that's a pattern. So
Yeah.
it's not telling them it's a pattern, but
Right.
letting them explore, the exploratory is a pattern. I'm just putting these words that people are saying and we can cut and paste them
So
around.
maybe searching and finding repeating patterns, next to that on that same line, exploring patterns
Searching,
in our
finding, exploring.
real world. Yeah.
Searching, finding, searching for. Finding and exploring. Like clothes and things like that. A lot of the kids wear stripes and those have patterns in it.
yeah, they said the same thing in here.
I just want to keep in mind, you guys, so that we don't spend a long time on that, but they've been doing this since kindergarten.
So it's really
And they've been
review.
doing those things since kindergarten. So that would be more of our review
Right,
days, just to keep that in mind.
right.
I mean, I see the first 3 lines all being one day,
Right.
one lesson,
Yeah.
all 3 of those pieces.
And then it goes from in here. It goes from doing the clap snap to then they do a clap snap pattern and then they have to build the pattern with cubes. So then they're making it. So then they hear it. She'll clap twice and then snap, and so they would know 2 blue, 1 red, and make the pattern from the sounds they hear.
That's also kind of like what you can do with the pictures. You can have them show the pictures.
From the sound, or
And I
Boy, girl,
had
boy,
arranged them
girl.
in front of the class, kind of like what you're talking about, having them do different things. It was the same thing, except they were in the front of the class with the images and rearranging themselves, different situations.
Okay, so what do we want to do? Are we confident, are we comfortable more with that piece right there?
Yes.
yes. And then after, just going in the sequence of Kathy Richardson, after she had them build it from the sounds, then she gave them like a task card that had a repeating pattern, and they had to create the same pattern using different manipulatives.
So that would go back to that multiple
Manifestations.
representations.
Yes.
Of the same one.
pattern.
So like if you had Mario, Princess, Princess, then they could do like standing up, sit down, like it's the same pattern just shown in a different way. And they had really good examples on page 100 out of Kathy Richardson of the same pattern, different ways.
That's the students' examples.
I think one thing I'm hearing with what Mitzi's saying with that, this is like that repeating patterns that we're doing basically, is then going then from that repeating patterns to your skip counting, Mitzi, because that's a beautiful way then to show, it's a pattern, but it's a growing pattern. Might be something, just thinking, I don't know, so something in my head.
So
I
repeating
was saying the
growing.
same thing, that skip counting would lead into growing patterns.
Yeah, because it's then showing how skip counting is really a pattern, but it's just, and they're so comfortable with that. Is I then say,
Could, we had talked about like quick checks. I was wondering, could we give like a quick check for the repeating patterns?
pattern.
Because I think I read it somewhere also that has to be completely
Solid, yeah.
before you can do growing, and
That
just
makes
to make
sense.
sure they're really understanding.
Well, it's almost like you could do two quick checks. You could do a quick check for repeating patterns to see if they can build them and do them, and then a quick check for repeating patterns to see if they can take
Match
the
it.
same pattern
and,
and create it different
Right.
ways, because those are two different skills.
right,
Yes.
So
right, that makes sense.
it's almost like you need.
Are those both review from first and kindergarten? Could they be on
Well,
the
in
same?
kindergarten, they start talking about creating how patterns are similar. So they start talking about that, and they build upon it in first grade.
Okay.
The concreteness of that kids might have,
Yeah.
that's probably the tricky part. So that's why I'm saying you might want to do two separate quick checks. Because you also have the extending of the pattern, the repeating pattern. So if you did the quick check to see if they could build a pattern, extend the pattern, whatever else to that, then you do another one just on the specific skill of creating the same pattern using different things. Because that would probably be a harder concept.
Yeah.
So who can help create those two quick checks?
Well, there's Math
or
Connects
something.
has sheets that go along with those.
As
So
a pre-assessment.
which ones do we want? The
Do we want to include those up in the assessment box and we can just make a note?
And which ones?
Quick check.
They need
There you
it.
go.
do we want to
Right there,
do
in the formative.
extending first, or
I would
Isn't
say
that a
creating first and then
pre-assessment?
extending.
Well, yeah.
I think you could do creating and extending together.
okay, there's one on page 69 of Math Connects, chapter 2.
So, yeah, creating and extending a repeating pattern, and then an assessment on creating a repeating pattern in a different manifestation, whatever the word they use.
That's spelled wrong. That's spelled right.
And that was page 69, you said?
Yeah, that one's with skip
Says
counting.
extend skip
so-
counting.
Perfect.
What about a pre-assessment before we start? Giving them maybe a simple A-B pattern that they did in first grade and seeing if we put a box in a circle.
Isn't that what we're,
Oh, I thought this was formative.
Is this
in
midway through or from the
Yeah, this
beginning?
was
Like a
after a little bit.
Yeah,
Check.
but
So do
just
we-
to see if even in first grade, they have the concept of the A-B pattern. Just a simple.
What do you guys think about that?
but couldn't that be done while we're doing, when we're doing these patterns, even connecting it with clapping and stuff like that? I mean, couldn't you do a
See if
visual?
they-
Yeah.
See if they can
Yeah.
make it, they can,
Like a formative.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's page 69. This is what I see.
What,
I think it's this.
what was the other one, Brooke, that you were saying, the pattern? What was that?
Oh,
Extend,
it is a chapter.
recreating a pattern?
Multiple manifestations.
Multiple manifestations of the same pattern, okay.
No.
Multiple manis.
What's on page 69? Unless I have the wrong book or something.
Which chapter, book,
No, I'm
which
sorry.
number?
Chapter 2.
Chapter
Chapter 2.
That's with
Math
skip
Connects.
counting.
This chapter?
That's the one that they
Chapter
have
two.
for
Page 69.
extending.
This was keep coming.
Extend.
It's not a repeating,
It's not one.
well,
You have
We need to make our own?
numbers. You have not been using. 2 snails
I
on
think,
each
I
rock.
think
How
what
many
we just
total
need to
snails are
decide
there?
is
No.
whoever is creating it could base something off of it, giving them ideas, but I think it'd be better just
To make our own.
to make your own and
Yes.
just say, this person will create it and present it and we can tweak it,
If
like
they
we did
use-
before with the
If you're
reviews.
looking for big patterns in the
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
resource
there.
masters, there are a lot of them
That's basically this.
at the end of the chapter.
There you go.
The one on page 69 would not match
So we just
what
need
we're
someone
doing.
to,
Yeah, we just
Do you
need
wanna
someone
check
to
that?
do
Put
it.
it in.
do you
Sounds
wanna
like
do that?
Carlos is the man.
Carlos.
Yeah.
Carlos.
Okay. Yeah,
You
Carlos.
could take a few of them, Carlos,
Yeah.
and put them together. If you need help, Carlos, I'll help
No
you.
problem.
Just pictures.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to go down sequencing.
Yeah.
So
Concept.
let's finish up with the sequence. then.
Are you keeping that page 69?
I'll take it out.
Yes, because it doesn't.
Why don't we
match.
just put resource,
It's
Math
a
Connect
match.
resource pages.
Right.
Okay, how about that?
But you need to get rid of the 69.
Yeah,
No.
Resource
Oh.
pages.
the resource
Yeah.
page
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
3.
Resources. I'm just leave that. It's
Sure.
You know that, Carlos, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
that's what it's suggested.
So what do we want, the next thing we want to go into is the skip counting.
And then do we want to connect that with a hundreds chart?
No, I wouldn't connect it with that
The
chart
skip
yet.
count.
Not yet?
Because there's 2 different things we're talking about there. One's counting a pattern and the other's like on a hundreds chart. I'm
That's
thinking.
identifying a pattern on the hundreds chart.
I know.
If you're connecting it to growing patterns, this is just my thought. If you use the hundreds chart, you can show how it's growing by 2. And we're adding 2 on. And then you can connect it with the manipulative also, so you're getting that quantity piece. So they have, you say 2, so they have 2 manipulatives, you find 2 on the hundreds chart. Well, what do we do if we wanted to skip to 4? We have to add 2
2.
on, so it's like a growing pattern.
Yeah,
So you're
that's what I think
connecting
we should
all
do.
3.
That makes sense.
That's what the investigations lessons, I don't know, I didn't mind them that much. How many floors, because that's what they recommend, section
1.2,
1.2.
it's on page
But I haven't started it
41.
at 1.1.
So
Because they jumped all the way to using the table.
Yeah.
But here, what they do is like 2 cubes, and if you add 2 more, that gives you 4, 2 more.
and then just connect it
So
with the
it's
hundreds
cute.
chart,
Yes.
so you're doing all 3.
And then it moves to the table that's on the math test, where they say using tables. It moves to the table, the
I think
next
that's
lesson
That's a big jump.
moves to the table that's on the math test. But you wouldn't have to go so quickly.
Yeah, I
because you
agree.
could spend more time practicing.
So I guess the question on the table is, when we talk about skip counting and patterns with growing, do we want to connect it with the manipulative and the hundreds chart? Or do we want to just connect it to one, or do we want to connect?
both.
Connect
Oh,
both.
Yeah, cubes and hundreds
Yeah.
charts,
Yeah.
you're right.